At the time, I think we were under the impression that we might get a third and final season, and that was what was being talked about. And so when we produced this episode, we didn't really know whether we were coming back or not. And sadly, we didn't come back. And in the end, that was that. I think usually what we would do is we would wrap, and then once the season had wrapped, the writers would get together like a couple of weeks later, and we'd start breaking for the following season. And I don't remember. We found out we were canceled. I found out at the office, but apparently Brad and a lot of the cast were. Where were they?
The USS Carl Vinson. They were at sea.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And Twitter, I think, broke the news or something. It was one of those early things.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't remember how much we talked about season 3.
No, we didn't. Unlike season 6, where we had that kind of half-ass idea board on the whiteboard, we did not discuss season 3. In hindsight, we can talk about the potential ways it could have gone, but we never had the opportunity to actually sit down and strategize.
Right. I also don't remember when we introduced the stasis pods.
Mm-hmm.
Did we know we were going to do that ending when we developed them, or did
the stasis pods, or when did we find them?
It was a couple of episodes before. It was that.
Was it just Blockade?
It was
before that.
It was. I think it might. Was it Blockade?
I think it had to have been earlier.
Because I remember that there was a whole sequence where they were farting around and then
they got frozen,
locked Brody in and all that stuff. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But in the end, it provided just a really kind of sad but moving way of sort of sending them off into the universe, not killing them.
No,
right?
Well, maybe dead. Eli, but we don't know.
But it's maybe Eli, but it works so well because they're not dead, but they're also not going and they're not continuing to have adventures that we don't get to see, right? Like they're out there, but they're frozen. So they're just kind of like and then
as Elena said, never aging.
Yeah, exactly. So that in theory, 100 years from now, there could be, obviously not, because the actors, well, they'd be CG at that point, I guess. But from a sort of an audience standpoint, it's like, because if we just said, okay, they're going to keep going, and you just don't get to see it, that's kind of rude. But also blowing up the ship is kind of rude too. So it's like.
Yeah, I think
it was the best we could do.
It's a fair compromise.
Yeah,
but frankly, if any show could come back, we had set up a finale that would allow us to come back. It would be Stargate Universe. I mean, 20 years later, those paws kind of malfunctioned. So maybe some of them look a little older. Some of them didn't make it.
In my mind, like I look back and I compare the endings, right? The endings of SG-1 and Atlantis and Universe, and they all were kind of cool in their own way. They were all endings, right? So none of it's good in that sense. But I mean, SG-1, 10 seasons. What are you going to do? Like nobody was complaining at that. Yeah, that's right. But that felt like a really appropriate ending. And Atlantis too could have kept going. I mean, there was nothing ending in that sense about that last scene, but it felt like it still delivered that moment where they were all together and looking out at the Golden Gate Bridge. Like you have to do something like that to have some sense of closure. Otherwise it's just so annoying to just be left hanging. But you don't want to just completely wrap it up, because there's always the possibility that you come back, right? So it's a tricky thing, but I think we've done some pretty good versions of that.
Absolutely. So this is the first that I heard that it's possible that the pods were not created to be the element that ended the show.
I don't remember, to be honest with you. I don't remember if we said we need stasis pods for the ending of the show, or if it was like, well, we got these stasis pods, why don't we use those? That's the way it goes on Stargate, right? Like there's just so many years of just so many elements and we had to like kind of almost have a catalog in your mind and be like, oh, we're pitching a story, and it's like, how do we get out of this one? And I was like, well, remember that planet we went to? That guy was there. He had that thing. Why don't we bring that back? Because that could get us out of this particular problem. So, you know, going back and trying to remember how the order of things and how it was all planned. It seems like it was all planned out, but I don't know how random it was at the time.
Absolutely.
You know? Although that was a tricky element of SGU in general, right? Because we couldn't bring new things on the ship very easily. Right. We really had to like set stuff up, you know.
Dial Pittsburgh and go and get some new outfits.
Yeah, exactly. That was one of the reasons why that whole civilization was a great idea. It was like, oh, we can have people and we can have other stuff that looks familiar, and yeah.
Beef jerky or something like it.
Beef jerky survives. Yeah, that's right.
And that music in the elevator. Oh my gosh.
Oh my God. That episode, I mean, that's Carl Binder at his absolute finest. What was it called again?
Epilogue and Common Descent.
Epilogue, yeah.
Some of my favorites.
I mean that is a classic Carl Binder episode. If ever you wanted to see one, he was always the mushy guy, right? Like Carl was the mushy guy, and you know, all the babies being born and everything, like that's all classic Binder, and it was such a great episode.
I have a few questions from fans, if you guys wouldn't mind sticking around and answering.
Sure.
And Joe, I will let you delegate. General Maximus, this is just a remark here. This is my first live Dial the Gate, and I would like to take advantage of the opportunity to say a very genuine and sincere thank you for all the stories and adventures you have given us and the journeys we have been on with the characters. I watched SG-1 from day one when it originally aired, and it isn't a coincidence that after all these years, and despite the influx of streaming and new content, Stargate continues to be one of the best TV shows ever made.
Wow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. William Aarons, was it ever stated or in your mind how far into the universe or to what other galaxies that Destiny and her crew had traveled?
I don't know if we got specific. I think we were kind of like 3/4 or something like that of the way through.
Out to the edge or
whatever. To the edge, something like that. It was past halfway, I believe. I don't remember. I mean, the unit, how do you even, you know, the unit, right? Like, yeah, you count it in billions of light years, right? And we would just say billions of light years from home. We never said 8 billion light years. Right. I don't think they
several billion is the line.
I'm not sure if they knew. They had that course, and they in the beginning, and you watched it going, and they're like, "Are those stars?" And it's like, "No, those are galaxies." That was a great scene. But I don't know how specific we ever got in our own minds. I don't really remember. It was just billions and billions.
Did you? I'm curious. Did the possibility of a loop, like of space bending, occur in the conversations that you were actually?
We talked about that.
Okay.
I talked about that with Brad because I didn't exactly know what Brad had in mind for the ending, and we talked about the background radiation and stuff like that. But in my mind, there was always a possibility that they would come back to Earth, but it would be like 1,000,000 years in the future or 1,000,000 years in the past.
Yeah, the long way around.
Yeah, there would be some weird time effect to it or something, but you know, it's that classic. If you walk on a balloon, and eventually you get back to the starting point.
And the balloon is expanding or contracting as the
exactly
universe does. Thanks for watching this clip from Dial the Gate. You can find the full live stream shows on our YouTube channel or visit dialthegate.com for the complete schedule. See you on the other side.